We're here to share with you inspiring stories that bring to life all the little and big ways that people bring more love, joy, laughter, and humanness to everyday life. Our focus is the hunt for those little moments that refuel the human soul and reminds us what life is really all about. I invite you to sit back, enjoy the moments, enjoy the stories, the adventures, and the journeys. Hey there, welcome back to another episode of What the World Needs More of. My name is Anthony Robbins. I am your host, and I am excited to have a very special guest that I've known for a handful of years now. His name is Randy Zales. Randy, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely, Jared. It's good to connect again.
Yes. Randy, we're going to dive straight into the question of the show is, what do you believe the world needs more of?
Oh, that's easy. Coffee. More coffee. It solves everything. I really believe, and this is both from a personal and professional perspective, I think the world needs more critical skills training. I think from individuals and from companies, the world is changing. We are living in this VUCA world. It's volatile, it's uncertain, it's complex, it's ambiguous. And, we're constantly having to kind of adapt and redefine, at a personal level, but, also as professionals in our job roles, companies and their employees. And, we need new skills, one, to do the jobs that we have that are changing, and two, just certain skill sets that are critical to adapt to the future. The ability to be adaptive, to be agile, distraction management, social management. There's just an ongoing series of skill sets that if we're going to not only, survive and thrive, they need to be developed either at an individual level or within a company.
I agree. I like that term. What was it again? VOCA?
It's called VUCA.
VUCA.
It's volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous.
Wow.
Not mine. It stems from the military over the last years, just to kind of create a perspective of the landscape we're in. And think about, things change so fast. If you look at someone in history, individual named Buckminster Fuller or Bucky Fuller, he talked about this decades ago, and it was called a concept he called accelerated acceleration. And it was the idea that time folds on itself. And if you look what we're doing with technology and how we're creating things, we're creating technology at such a faster rate than before that time is being compressed. Look at it. Like our iPhones. Before an iPhone came out, every couple years, few years was a big deal. Now they're coming out every 6 to 8 months. So what's happening is we're changing technology at a different rate. It's compressing communications, compressing worlds. The global world is not a theory anymore. It's a reality. But it's also changing the way we work, how we communicate, how we do things. And that's the world we're in.
Wow. And so for people to tool up, to prepare for that, to really learn, like you said, distraction management, which I don't know how much of that was a thing 50, 60, 70 years ago. The distraction management was unplug the phone or turn off the TV or radio.
Yeah, exactly.
Where nowadays, you get bombarded with thousands of hits every day from every direction. I think, like you said, it's only speeding up.
You think about it. So, you get up in the morning, you start your work, you start working on something. Next thing you know, ding, an email comes in, and then you're looking at that email, or all of a sudden something else comes in, or a package comes in, and a book comes in, a report comes in, and before you know it, you're pulling off in 18 different directions. And that's not even including if you have a TV on in the background or communication or someone coming in your office. But that's a reality. So those are, that's just one skill, but it's the world we're in today.
Wow. So true. I love that concept. Hopefully towards the end of the podcast, we can get in the nuts and bolts of tips around stuff like this. I think it's useful.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But for right now, my second question is, what's your wow factor? What makes you uniquely you? And what are some moments that help shape it over the years?
I would tell you my wow factor is making coffee disappear. Which that is a wow factor for me. But really, my biggest thing that I've been doing for 22 years that I love is really designing training solutions that drive performance, productivity, and profits. And that has been something that I've been very passionate about. And it's not just delivery. A lot of people love to be in front of the room or to be on stage or the one doing the presenting, and that's fine. I do it well. I enjoy it. What I find even more exciting, and this kind of lends itself towards the future, is really training leaders to teach and managers to train, because that is where the future is. It's not just about taking one person and developing their skill set. It's not about like taking a sales force and training salespeople to be that much better. Imagine what you can do if you could actually take 20 managers inside the company, and take them and up their game where they can train and develop their people in real time. You think about the scalability, the efficiency, the infrastructure it creates for an organization. And that's really, and that's what I've been working on, for the last, decade, and really doing it in the field, is moving in that direction, is getting design. I love the design factor. I love designing solutions that work, and then getting them into the hands and delivering them to leaders who can then do it inside their companies.
Very cool. Very cool. And what were maybe one or two defining moments of that journey of learning how to do this, of putting it in the motion, of applying it, practicing, helping distribute it within companies? Maybe one or two defining moments over the years. Absolutely.
One of the first ones for me was, I'm a former Army officer and a paratrooper, and that is where it's where I definitely learned the power of training. The Army itself is a training organization. It lives and breathes on a training calendar. It lives and breathes on training doctrine. When I served, we had something called, battle-focused training, and it was the idea, or you can think of it as mission-focused training. It was the idea that you can't possibly train everybody on everything. But if you take a look and say, okay, what is the mission? What has to be achieved at varying levels? And what do they need to know? And what do they need to be able to do to a standard to do that? And so obviously, as an officer, you're indoctrinated in that approach and you manage it. And it really hit me because one experience I had was, my first assignment was, I was a second lieutenant. I was running medical ops for the 506th Infantry, Currahee, stands alone, Band of Brothers, Hua. We're on the demilitarized zone, and it was the most, at the time in 91, it was the most forwardly deployed unit in the Army, 3 miles from North Korea. And we had a medical center, mini medical center, to support the DMZ and the infantry. But what happened is, we had a lab and supply and ER and patient administration and multiple functions, yet the combat medics I had on in my unit were never trained to do those jobs. So I realized real quickly that if we were going to be able to fully have the capabilities we needed, was I need to take the right people in this group of soldiers, identify which ones with my leaders fit, and then get them trained. And so we arranged to send them downrange into Seoul to have them trained. And we literally built this whole model that did not exist. And that was kind of one of the first things I saw, was having to adapt and the power of what training could do, because it completely changed the capabilities of our unit, of what we're able to do. And it got noticed. And then another real big one, honestly, was after the military or the Army, or kind of a segue into that was, is connecting with your dad, through Anthony Robbins and Associates, the franchise. And, what happened for me was I got exposed to, unlimited power back actually when I was in the military. I was reading a book. Did you ever see that movie, Men Who Stare at Goats?
No.
So it's kind of a spoof with George Clooney on a project the Army did called the Jedi Warrior Project. And, if you go back in some of the history, that's where, Tony was involved in that from the 45 caliber marksmanship with John Grinder.
Yes.
Yeah. So that all stems all the way back in time. It's kind of funny how things come full circle, and that goes all the way back in time where that modeling project per se was done with John and Tony, and that was a small piece of that bigger project. And I got exposed to that, and then that information, by getting exposed to that project and that insight, led me to Tony's work, led me to his programs, and then eventually into the franchise. But the big thing the biggest takeaway were two things. Was one, the emotional aspect of applying the human aspect to training and development. You can't ignore that. It cannot be, skills are one thing, but the emotional intelligence, the emotional dynamics are critical to that. And then the second part was understanding modeling, was really starting to delve into how to model, how to compress time. So those things really, enhanced, as I design training and deliver training, is the human aspect is critical to it. And then modeling strategies. I think also it's important. A lot of times people use modeling in a generic term. Well, find the best people and model them. Well, the challenge is if you model the best people, what you're going to do is you're also going to get all their negative shit. And Richard Bandler, who was the co-creator of NLP, as you know, I was going through some of his programs back in the day, and I was sitting down for lunch one day, and we started to talk, and it was in between one of the breaks of the seminar. And I sat at his table, and then his wife sat down, and John Laval and some other people sat down, and that were in his crew. I didn't even realize it was his table. I just sat down to eat, and we started talking, and he asked me some things I was doing, and I told him I was working on a project where I was modeling. We were modeling some of the top salespeople in the company, and using the insight to build a very focused or customized program for the company. And he said, don't model people. He said, if you model people, you get everything, bad and good. He said, what you want to do is model the strategies. Go down and elicit the strategies that work, that are separate from the person, and extract them out. And it was a really good deep conversation. And it was funny because as we're sitting there at the table, all of a sudden we both look up. We're really together in this convo, and we look up, and there's like 30 people that were in the program that were now standing circled around the lunch table listening to our conversation. And Richard looks up and goes, I didn't know I was having a seminar. You people go eat your lunch, be gone. So, but, those are things that really, those are a few of the things that really, the military, my time with ARA, and then learning from other people, how to specialize in learning really helped me, create, become create that wow factor and do what I do. So
I love it. I love it. And over all the years, what's a moment that made you feel incredibly humble?
Well, at my age now, there's always quite a few, but, there's one that stood out for me that a few years ago that really hit home was, is the hero's journey story. A lot of people talk about the hero's journey. There's the hero has to, overcome an obstacle, and then from the obstacle they have to learn something or acquire something, and they go on their journey, and they either succeed or they fail, right? I listened to an example of that, but it was given in a different perspective. Was that in the work that we do in helping people and helping organizations become more successful, is a lot of times we, as consultants, trainers, advisors, coaches, want to be the hero. You know what I mean? Like, because, you've got some specialized knowledge, you have experience, you've already walked the terrain, meaning is that you've done the things that they want to do. So that's valuable. But a lot of times, and for me, I show up, well, hey, here's the hero, I'll help you. Here I come to save the day. But I listened to an individual who presented the hero's journey from a different perspective. And it really was humbling. And the sense is, he goes, in the work you do, you are not the hero. your customer, the client, the organization, the people in that organization are the heroes. What you really are is you are a mentor, a guide, a provider to the hero on their journey, because they're the one that has to, overcome the obstacle. They're the one that has to fight the battles. They're the one that has to make the decisions. They're the one that will decide whether they succeed and, or not. And so the idea is that, is for me, the big humbling thing was realizing, I'm not the hero. They're the hero. That I'm the, I'm Yoda to Luke Skywalker, or you're the Morpheus to their Neo, or Hamish to Cat, to Cat, was it Hamish to Katniss? You're the guy. You're Merlin to King Arthur. It's this idea that you are a mentor, a provider, an advisor to the hero in the journey. And that really did change my perspective a lot. And it was humbling to kind of, hear that, understand it, and realize it. And I think that's something that I think everybody who is providing solutions to their customers, whatever it is you do, is realizing you're not the hero, your customer's the hero. You're just a part of the journey. An important part, they need it, but a part.
Yeah. I had a very similar experience with this concept. I remember it's a game changer, because I remember sitting through seminar after seminar after seminar, and I'd travel around the world and speak at some and just listen to others. And I kept hearing this same story, which was someone on stage talking about how once their life was great, and then they were knocked down. They were sleeping on their friends, sisters, cousins, brothers, aunts, cousins, whatever, so-and-so's couch, down and out, couldn't figure out what to do with their life. Eventually found a spark, battled through the hills, made it back to this moment of glory, has had their ups and downs, and now have truly reached the pinnacle of whatever it is that life, and they're talking about health, wealth, travel, whatever. And you too can be like me and be a hero if you run to the back of the room and sign up now. And my wife laughed when she heard this. She's like, everyone has the same story. And I started laughing, and it was the realization where it's like, wait a minute. People, and if you look at, I think it's GoPro, it's be your own hero. That concept of people want to be the hero nowadays. And like you said, that to have the insight to be able to step into the role as just a guide, a friend that says, hey, you're the hero. You know what to do. Let me help just connect a couple dots for you, or help you see some part of yourself you've never seen, or help you step into a place that you didn't know existed, and all of a sudden, kapow, it all works, and you get to go be your hero. There's something special about that dynamic, and it
Absolutely.
transforms the entire industry of training as a whole, because no longer is the person the expert with the 5 golden pillars of whatever. Now it's like, hey, we have some frameworks, but you're the hero. Step in and make the magic happen.
Absolutely. And I really think I think that is the key thing. And there's nothing, you don't take away from your expertise. I mean, I can tell you time and time again, working with companies on 4 different continents, from Bangkok and Bangladesh to, Modesto, California, or Zurich. And I will tell you, CEOs and senior executives will always pick people or teams that have done the job before successfully versus somebody or a team that has potential. Because they got a track record. So there's nothing taken away from someone's expertise or from your knowledge or the work you've done. And that's what gives you the credibility to be the advisor and the guide, is that you've already done what they want to do. You've walked the terrain that they're trying to walk, and you know where to step. You know which path not to take. Some skill sets that you can transfer that they're going to need on this journey. But in the end, they got to do it, because we're not the ones that are there. Even if you're coaching, we're not the ones that are actually doing it. And I agree 100%. And I think that is just that model of tell your story and how you have the tragedy is it's a model. I mean, it's nothing wrong with it, but I think that small shift of saying, hey, let me show you a way, not the way, but a way. Can make a big difference.
I think there's a layer of this, and I'll throw this out there for people listening, because I know becoming an influencer is a big deal nowadays. And I'll show you how this ties in. And I had this young guy hit me up the other day, and he's like, hey, I want to help grow your brand online. I said, okay, what's your way to do it? And he said, we need you to stand out. And I said, okay, how do I stand out? He's like, we need more pictures with your face on it, with your quote, so that people can deeply get invested and connect with you as an influencer, as a thought leader. And I said, okay, how does my beautiful mug somehow influence people better? And he's like, because then they have a deep connection with you and they start to relate that you truly are the thought leader that they can go to. And I said, well, here's the thing. I'm trying to stand out. Who am I trying to stand out from? And what and how does this help me stand out? And he's like, well, and he started listing off everyone else who has a big brand in the personal development industry. He goes, you have to stand out like they do and do something different like they do. And I said, wait a second. You're telling me to stand out like they do by copying what they do? I think you have your strategy backwards, my friend. And I said, but let me say, what do you see on my page? And my page is just a bunch of quotes. And he says, well, your page is normal and ordinary. There's nothing special about it. There's just a bunch of quotes. And I said, well, what do the quotes say? And he's like, well, it says all kinds of just hype up bullshit that no one reads anyways. And I said, really? And I said, but look at your page. I see a page with a bunch of pictures of you looking awesome in front of cars that you probably don't own. But you look really awesome and real powerful, and I'm sure you're a superhero to the world around you. And I said, but it's all about you. And I said, if you read my page has nothing to do with me. I've learned the lesson of trying to be a guide for people, which means take myself out of it and just take everything I know and pour it into the comment section of every one of those posts, that if they read it and take time to assimilate it, it's just pointing them in the right direction, giving them hope and showing them a little strategy that might help today. And I said, I think what's different is when you transform the whole thought process. And so circling back for everyone who's listening, really, truly, if you do this same thought, but you do your own quote unquote social media and or influencer analysis of what your real mission is, because so many people say their mission is to help others, and then you look at their page and it's 1,000 pictures of themselves looking awesome. And I was like, I'm sure that helps somebody somewhere. But I saw a video from Prince EA. He was just receiving an award, and he says, if you're an influencer, if you're influencing others, what are you influencing them to do, to feel, to think, to experience? Are you bringing goodness into their life, or are you making them want to go buy more shit they can't afford and making them feel bad about themselves for not having the latest outfit or clothes or style or travel trip or whatever? And I remember looking at this same concept where we're talking about is becoming that guide and stepping into that place and realizing, wow, I need to make sure that there's a consistent thread of, for me, it's putting goodness into the world, good thoughts, good feelings, good emotions. And it's, how do I do that, online? How do I do that? And how I show up? How do I do that in this, in the conversation we're having in a training? How do you bring forth the types of things that bring out the best in human beings around you, instead of just constantly putting them in a state of anxiety, fear, or feeling like they're not enough and they need to buy the next thingamabobber just to keep up with everybody else? I think it'll start to transform the psychology and the experience people have in day-to-day life as that ripples from people teaching incredibly inside of organizations all the way to what, anyone listening puts up on the next post of their Instagram channel. That concept of choose things that really, truly serve a person in your community. And then the other aspect is make it shareable. Make it something that someone reads and goes, yes, that's a message I think the world needs more of. And then they instantly hear it, feel it, and then share it. And if you're trying to grow your reach, shareability is one of the biggest keys there. And I think same thing in philosophies, Randy, like you're training in companies, when they hear something that just resonates, they go, you know what? I have a friend that works at another company down the road. They need to hear this. Can I introduce you? Can we do this for them? Like when it really resonates, I think something special happens in those moments.
Well, and that's where, in the space, when it comes to training and development or consulting to companies in the space, is that, I can tell you, I've never had a CEO or a owner of a company reach out to me because of a post or an image on Instagram. That's not how it's going to happen. Yep. It's conversations. Yep. It's conversations a lot of times that refer from referrals from people who had experiences and other leaders. And it's conversations. It's a conversation about new capabilities. It's a conversation about sharing insight. And I agree. And I definitely listen. I've always found that I'm not saying that any of those things can't enhance or help, but I think in the end, the truth is, I think the work that we do, the track record and the results we produce for people and for clients are what speaks for themselves. Yeah. That is what, is, so if anything, it's, if you've got a track record and you got results, put that out there, because now you're giving people a real reason to believe that it can be done.
That's right. That's right. That was a piece of advice my dad gave me a long time ago. He said, when you're starting something new, he said, here'd be my best tip. Take whatever you have, come up with an actual price of what you charge for it. Go find 10 of 20 people and say, listen, here's what I would normally charge for it. I'm willing to do for it for less, as long as I deliver 5 to 10 times the value. You'd be willing and able to write me a solid endorsement and testimonial. Now, if I suck, right, you don't owe me anything. But if I really deliver, please write me a solid endorsement. And like you said, take those 10 to 20 pieces of social proof of actual results, and now you have something to stand on, to share with the world around you and go, hey, here's what I've done for 20 different organizations. And now I'd like to do it for yours, and here's fair market value of what it's worth. Let's do it.
I agree. It's definitely, if you're in that place, absolutely. And I think it's important too, is making sure that those projects get thoroughly documented. Yep. And turned into cases, because that is what, cases and proof is where people are going to make decisions on, they're going to evaluate if they like you, if they want to work with you. But in the end, they're going to look at, do they believe you can help them do what they're trying to do? Yep. I think it's great. It was great advice.
Very smart. Very smart. Here's a question. What's been the most awe-inspiring moment over all these years?
I would say I have to go back to, believe it or not, early 90s. Graduate school. And I was really studying heavily into Peter Drucker's work, who's arguably considered one of the fathers of management, but also another gentleman some people may not know is Tom Peters. Tom Peters wrote the book In Search of Excellence, and basically turned American management upside down on its head, and basically told the management world that they were doing it wrong. They were so focused on numbers and the hard stuff, they were ignoring the human factor, other factors that had an impact. And he was a partner at McKinsey at the time, ended up leaving. But I really delved into his work, and I came across an article. To this day, I still can't find. It was in Women's Working Magazine, which I don't even know if it even exists anymore. And it was an article called The Skill Merchant. And what it really talked about was the idea that in the future, now bear in mind, this was the 90s, that in the future, people would not have, permanent jobs, that you would almost move from project to project, engagement to engagement, or assignment to assignment. And that you would ideally have assignment managers or career managers that would manage your career, and that your future success was all tied to two things. One, your skill sets and expertise, and your accomplishments and contributions in the work and the assignments that you did. It's kind of interesting how it kind of comes back full circle to this conversation. And that was the whole thing. And the article went on to talk about different examples. Like if you look at a movie set, like all this talent comes together for 6 to 9 months to make a movie. The director, the screenwriter, the cast, the film people, and all this stuff comes together, and they're all talent, all come together to produce something. And then when it's done, it's finished, it's released. And these people this group as a whole will probably never work together again, of all the same people. Some people might connect in other projects, but then they will go on to the next project and the next project. And it really hit home to me about how important it was in the field. This was the 90s, how important it was to not only maintain skills that were relevant to, the job I was in, but constantly looking to the future is, what do I need to know? What do I need to be able to do to be relevant, to be successful? And that really was, at the time that hit me, it was an aha. And to this day, I've never forgot about it. And it's, and I would say it's probably shaped where I'm at to this very day.
Wow. Wow. Powerful. It's amazing. One piece of knowledge crossing your path at the right moment in life can transform so much over the years.
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
I also want to know where Women's Working Magazine is at this point.
Yeah, I too. I know it's bizarre. You're like, Women's Working Magazine and the article from the 90s. And yeah, it was just, I had it and I don't know where it is. And I wish I could find it. But it was one of the best articles I've ever read. And it truly is an insight.
Very cool. Very cool. Here's a question. What about your greatest fear?
Well, I would tell you my greatest fear is a world without coffee.
We don't have show sponsors, but if we did, I think we would need a coffee company in here.
Hey, listen, I would love to have a friend with benefits. And by that, I mean somebody who owns a coffee company and the benefits being free coffee. No, yeah, you can't tell by now I'm fanatic about my coffee. I would say for me right now, in the place that I'm at, I constantly am afraid of really not having enough time to fit everything into the trainings I do for my clients. It's like, that I can't, is it enough? Do I have enough? Because time has become such a valuable commodity. People coming out, people pulling management and people out of the field, if you will, or off the job for 2, 3, 4 days is a significant deal. I mean, it's not something to be taken lightly. So I'm always, afraid of my lack of time and will I make sure that I can get what they need to know and be able to do in the time frame that we do it in. And some of the ways I start to do it now is I really look at, and I'm actually building one right now. We have another Salesforce we have to help a company launch that's growing in like 12 new markets. And we have to, but this one's a train the trainer. So we're bringing in 50 management from the field. Some are being new hires. We're going to train them to deliver the training in the field. So I got to look at that and say, okay, what is everything we can train them on? Then start to separate it from there. What's really nice or cool to have, and then start to strip it into is what do they absolutely must know and what do they must be able to do. But that really is something I always go through for myself every time I'm designing or delivering a program am I leaving something out? Am I leaving something out that they really needed? And if so, how do I get it back? But fortunately, technology is helping us close the bridge on that. So
it's true. It's true. What about this? What are you most excited about in the future?
Well, kind of playing off, the technology is I'm very, very excited about, where the future of like AI, artificial intelligence, VR, virtual reality, AR, augmented reality. I'm really, really excited to see how that is going to enhance the learning experience, what as trainers and developers, what we can do with that for people, because that's exciting to me. I'm playing around with different devices now. Again, right now, a lot of it's exciting to play with and to see, but that really has me excited. I'm also really blown away with some of the advancements now in assessment research that we've been able to participate in and use, because, you and I were talking about culture earlier, and right now, when you think about it, there are such advancements going on in scientific research around diagnostic assessments and tools that we can now give insight to leaders and owners of companies in hours that used to take weeks or months to gather. There's, one we're doing right now. There's a research study that was done through the Fisher Institute where they took 1,000 by assessing and evaluating over 1,000 companies, entrepreneurial companies, somewhere between, like 5 people up to like 700. And over a course of time frame, they looked at these 1,000 companies and were looking for patterns. And in the end of it, they built a body of research that showed how companies grow. That there is a way in which a company can manage the growth. They can know what's coming ahead of time and be prepared at every stage of the growth, because the one thing they found out that was really amazing is that the single biggest factor that affects a company's growth is really one thing. It's really only one thing, and it's not technology. It's people. The more people you add to a company, the more complex the company becomes. And it changes everything. It changes leadership styles. It changes communication. It changes how you manage. It changes how you manage and grow the company. So that research, that's really exciting, because now we've got that research into a platform, which could take weeks and almost a month between interviews and observations. You now can codify that information and produce it out into a very succinct, report, and see exactly where a company is on their stage of growth, what their challenges are, what they could, from a growth standpoint, should be focusing on at that stage, and where they need to consider also where they need to protect things in the company, where they need to build. So that's just not happening in business. It's happening in hiring. It's hiring in culture. So that is pretty. I'm very excited by that. It just, the old quote that everyone's drowning in information. There's tons of it. What they really need is wisdom. Mm-hmm. Well, that's that ability is. It's not more information that companies need. It's wisdom. It's the insight, and that's what I love, is to see these advancements being able to give leaders of companies the ability to see things that they just couldn't see without weeks and months of in-depth looking, and then the ability to make a decision that can truly, when you talk about doing good, I mean, you could really do good. You can make your environment much more fulfilling for the people that work there, and more efficient, more productive, and even better for the customers they serve. So, that is a couple things on the horizon that have me real excited.
Very cool. Very cool. I'm also paying attention to those things. I know Dad's working with a team that's taking all of his content and putting it into an AI bot that'll be able to coach people, hopefully just as effective. It's something that I imagine in that space in future would be, if there's an AI software or bot that would be able to read your body temperature, your blood pressure, your heart rate, your brain waves, and be coaching you. And as it's sharing information, it sees how you're adjusting and assessing and responding to it. It
Absolutely.
Can obviously be adjusting so quickly to give you the best insights that you can actually best receive and assimilate properly to then use and apply in your own life. And I don't know how humans will keep up with that, except for, if built correctly, it'll be a beautiful contribution to the world around us. It'll be really amazing. I'm also curious to know more about what you were saying about business growth. I think that'd be something interesting, and probably a lot of people listening will want to ping you about to find out more about that and what they can learn or apply in their own businesses.
Absolutely. I think the AI thing is amazing, and I will tell you, I really believe, I don't know when it'll be, but I think we'll have a time where that people will have their own individual AI that you literally could correlate. I mean, check your emails, correlate your schedules, correlate things in a way to give you insight back. But here's the catch, though. I still think in the end, and this circles all the way back to what we said in the beginning, is this is like technology, changing the way we do things. It's still going to require people to have new skill sets. So the technology is going to allow us to do things in different ways we couldn't do before, but it's still going to require us to be able to adapt, to be able to manage relationships, to problem solve, to be able to take that information we're going to get and apply it faster. So it's definitely exciting of where we're going. And I think that kind of the new technology then requires people to stay current with the technology, but also understand how it can integrate, with us as humans.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we're going to transition to the second part of the show real quick. These are quick and specific questions. We call it nuts and bolts. So this is the tangible, practical, tactical, applicable, something someone could listen to and immediately apply into their life or business. And so the first question here is where do you focus the majority of your time, thoughts, effort, and energy each day as of right now?
I think you know my first answer.
The connoisseur of coffee.
Yeah, brother, you know it, man. My blood type is dark roast. I probably, well, not probably, but I spend most of my time really revolving around a handful of core things. If I'm not designing, programs, which I'm in the midst of right now, my office looks like a war room between my monitors and the walls with projects. So I'm in the process of designing. If I'm not designing, I'm in delivery mode. So I'm delivering it either through live trainings, webcasts, or train the trainers. So that's a bulk of my time. And then I spend my time on R&D, so research and development. So it'd be like, like I'm flying out next week to Atlanta to a conference that's, with some high-level speakers on millennials, future trends, AI, EQ. So I'm constantly looking for new capabilities. What are new things that people in the companies need? Where is it? What are people doing? So I spend my time on R&D. I also spend my time on biz dev, business development. So for our world, I said before, I don't get clients by sending out newsletters and email and sending out Instagram posts and Facebook posts and all this stuff. It really comes down through networking, relationships, and conversations. So I do a lot of capabilities briefings, a lot of insight briefings to companies. I used to write white papers, but nobody reads them anymore. So now I do briefings. That's like the same thing when people ask me, hey, can you tell me more about business growth? Yeah. Email me, set up a call. I'll take you through. I'll take you through a briefing. So I spend most of my time on those four areas: design, delivery, R&D, and biz dev. And then my other bucket is my personal life. My family. I'm always with my wife and my daughter. We got a unique family setup. My daughter does International Connections Academy virtual school. My wife's one of the #1 luxury agents in Tampa. So we have a lot of control over our life. And we integrate our businesses and our life together. We travel together. We do things together. So that's really where I spend my time is those kind of really 5 areas.
Very cool. What's a key to your success in these 5 areas?
The first answer. The coffee. Well, I think a lot of it comes down to, in these areas, a lot of it comes down to adapting. Is recognizing that adaptive proficiency, realizing that things change and you have got to change with it. The design factors change. Delivering methods for delivery. So really, if I said there's one fundamental skill set for me, is the ability to be adaptive and agile, and that's I think, and that's something that even all your listeners, I don't care what you do or how you do it, is the ability to adapt to different people, situations, and circumstances, and to the environment you're in is critical. We're just changing so fast. I also think agility, the ability to move quickly, is important. I would also say one thing that is critical, without a shadow of a doubt, that it's an element the world definitely needs way more of, is emotional intelligence. In addition to the fact that we are changing so fast, the world we're in today has become, it's very divisive. We have a lot of tribes. A lot of people have different thoughts, ideas, opinions, and values, and that is really cool. And I think that's what makes the world an amazing place. I think intelligent people can disagree, but we're getting to a phase, and I really think it's a phase. I believe over time it will go away. That if we disagree with one another, we get pretty angry about it. And it gets a little ridiculous to the point that, it's destructive. And so I think where people need to think about, at least for me, I do it and I build it into everything we do with our clients is really building emotional intelligence. A lot of folks who are familiar with your work and your dad's work totally understand managing emotional states. But if you look at emotional intelligence, it breaks down into the interpersonal, the ability to be aware of your emotions and the ability to self-regulate. That right there is fundamentally, for me, one of the biggest keys to my success. I mean, listen, I definitely have a tendency to get angry. It's a style. It's based on my behavioral style. I can go there, but fortunately, I know how to control that. I know, and that is where we need to be at. I think people need to really learn how to be aware of their emotions and control or self-regulate those emotions so they do not become destructive. I mean, hey, there are two things that you can never take back: words out of your mouth and a bullet out of a gun. So people need to really consider that. And I'm not saying you have to agree with people or you can have someone, be upset, but you got to control that shit. And sometimes you got to lock it down, take a deep breath, walk away, and then reset. Because that lends itself to the relationship side. You cannot maintain or develop or sustain positive relationships personally or professionally if you cannot control your emotions. And so that emotional intelligence piece is definitely critical for me. And here's the cool thing is everyone has it. It's not like you have to go get it. And everyone's got a quotient level, a certain level of measurement. You need to develop it. And it's no different than going to the gym or working out. You build it, you work on it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Okay, we've come to our final question of the show. What's one actionable tip we can leave people with that if they were to just take this from today and use it, they would easily experience some of the success that you've created in your own life and experienced thus far?
Well, I think it goes back to things we've talked about. And I'll break it down into a handful of questions. They can apply it right now, immediately, no matter where you are, personally, professionally, an individual, a leader of a company. So here's a series of questions. If you think about where you are right now, ask the first question is, what is the end state you're trying to achieve? Get that clearly defined where you know what it is. Second question is, how will you measure it? How are you going to know you're on progress to achieve that end state? Then give yourself an honest assessment of where you are right now. Yes, you can use different type of assessments if you have an organization to get better insight or for an individual, but simply you can ask the question, hey, what strengths do I need to maximize or build upon? What weaknesses do I need to compensate for? And I'm going to tell you this, there's a lot of people out there, some are famous, that keep talking about double down on your strengths and ignore your weaknesses. And I'm going to tell you right now, that is, I won't say it's bullshit, but it's not realistic for many people. You have to have a lot of resources. You have to have a lot of resources at your disposal to ignore your weaknesses or your blind spots. You know what I mean? Yep. And if you have the resources and you have people and external ways to delegate all that, then by all means. But a lot of people, and for the most part, most people don't have that. And sometimes the job or the things they're doing or the end state they're trying to achieve, means you got to compensate for a weakness. So look at the weakness and look at how can you compensate for it? How can you overcome it? Also, as part of the assessing your current state, what are some of the problems that you have to deal? Looking at looking at the best opportunities. And when I say best opportunities right now, is what are the opportunities that are going to move you towards the end state and staying focused. This kind of goes back to distraction management. It's so easy, shiny new object, this opportunity, you gotta zero back in and be honest with, if the end state's where you want to go, what are the opportunities you can go after? And then also being aware of any threats that are gonna have an impact on that. Once you've made that assessment, then you got to define out what are the key strategies and tactics you're going to use to close the gap. How are you going to get from where you are to where you want to be? And then from there, and here's the part that most people skip, most companies skip, because I know you probably have business owners and CEOs right now listening that are like, yeah, Randy, that's solid, but we do that already. We think this way. Now, that's fantastic. But a lot of people don't do is they don't ask the question, what are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that I need or my people need to execute on those strategies and tactics. That's the part that a lot of people skip over. They just assume, oh, well, we know where we're going. We know where we are. We've got our strategies. Let's go execute. And that is about 80%. But that 20%, that the difference that really makes the difference is you got to have the right capabilities to do it. An older general that I was exposed to back in my time, always said this, and I never forgot it. Enthusiasm is not a replacement for capability, and neither is hope. So be ruthlessly honest is, what are the skill sets? What's the knowledge, skills, and abilities that have to be developed to execute? And if you do that, and then go acquire them as quickly as possible. And that is where I think, if people take that right now, they can definitely, they can move the needle. If they're a company and they've got employees or teams, they can definitely, up their game. No question about it.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, if people want to learn more of how to get in touch with you and have this conversation, this briefing, we're going to make sure the links are in the show notes so they can click on that, click on the show note links and go right to you. But since we're here, would you mind sharing with them where would they go to find more about you and how they might be able to have one of those briefings with you?
Snapshot. You can go to my website at randyzales.com. The best way, though, absolutely the best way is I'm a one-to-one relationship person. So the work that I do is not sent out via promotional offers and emails. I have real conversations. So if you're a business owner or a leader and anything that Jarek and I have talked about catches your attention or is making you think in some way that this is something that I want to know more about, then email me at randy@randyzales.com and let me know a little bit about you, what you're thinking, what caught your attention. And I will share with you, some of the briefings we have. I do briefings. We do capabilities briefings on some of the work we do. We share some of the case studies that we do. And then like on the business growth, we have a whole briefing, on that approach. So that's the best way to connect with me.
Very cool. Well, thank you, sir, for taking the time to share with us.
Always.
Thank you for everyone for taking the time to tune in. If you like this episode and you know someone who needs to hear it, please share it with them. We believe that sharing is caring. We like caring people around here, so make sure to share. And then I look forward to seeing you all next episode.